All right. Good morning, everyone. We are gathered today. Now that sounds a little bit morbid, don't you think? Let me start again. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Sprint 5 review, where our theme was workflows. I'm going to hand it over to Tom to demo some things that were completed in this sprint. We'll be sharing with Thor and others as this review progresses. We'll wrap it up at the end with talking about our off-work cycle schedule and our work cycle, end of work cycle meeting for stakeholders. So stay tuned, hang in there, and I hope that you continue listening to this video recording. Tom?
Yeah, great. So like Gabriella said, the main theme for this sprint was workflows, and our goals were sort of broad here. I think we weren't really sure how quickly we would move on the workflow stuff, in part because we weren't really sure what would work in Hyrax out of the box with our metadata backends and file storage backends. So we were a little bit like part of the goal of this sprint was to dig in as the development team. I think this is the first time that the team at large has sort of confronted the Hyrax code base as something that they need to work in day to day. So this is us sort of coming to terms with that a little bit. The idea with the workflows is that we have a project that you deposit objects into, and the project's configuration governs what process an object should go through once it's in. So that might look like a multi-step approval process, or like that. It's a broadly configurable life cycle. And our first goal was to get a workflow configured for the sort of default project, so that we had practice creating a basic more than one step deposit workflow. We'd done prior to this work cycle some off-cycle work with Chrissy and Arwen to define what we think a realistic workflow is going to look like. But what we scoped for the workflow definition was just a really simple several like one-step review process. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, that what I would like to be showing you is us depositing a work, logging in as a person who is authorized to review an item, clicking around, pushing OK, and then having the item go through to the approved state. I'm not showing you that, first of all, because we expect to be able to deposit an item through a workflow, or through a project rather. I'm going to name this not in workflow, if I can type. And I'm just going to like put an image in. And I expect here to be able to choose the project. And we're just having a little trouble getting this to search. We did some upstream work to unblock this, but I think our current work to make it possible to deposit through a workflow is still in our review and approval process, so it's not yet through and deployed. I think there's some hope that we'll be able to finish that up today, so we might have a rosier update for you in the written version of this. But for now, we can imagine that I choose a deposit or choose a project here. And then when I save the work, it would go into workflow. You can see this one, that's the usual situation. I'm going to go ahead and go back here. So once the object is in the workflow, I should have a tasks tab if I am, and here if I'm a approving user or a person who's authorized to do actions in this workflow process, then I should see that item show up here, and I'd be able to like click through and then that would go back to not that page. Where's my not in workflow item? Oh, there it is. So if it's in a workflow and I'm a user, then I'd expect there to be, or I'm a user with actions, then I'd expect there to be a box up here where I can choose what action I'm going to take and type in a message saying how I've done that action, and then it will go through to the next step in the process. The other piece that's expected here, but isn't really well tested because we're not quite there yet, is these notifications. So here and also here, I would expect to see that this object is available for me to review. Okay. Last but not least, I'll show you the thing that we do have working, which is the workflow roles assignment. This is another place where we did a fair bit of work in the upstream code base to make this work for us and run quite a lot faster than it does in a default hierarch stack. So we have some users in this system, and I'm going to go ahead and pick myself and add myself as, you can see we have 2 workflows defined here. The one-step mediated deposit and our surfliner default. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and like remove myself from several of these roles just for good fun. And then I'll add myself back to them. And if I'm the manager of a project, then I can decide which users have various access to these actions. So this is really the idea here, is that individual processes or collections or departments or however we choose to break down work into projects, that somebody will have management access and choose which users can do with which steps. So yeah, you can see that that's sort of defined here. And in the ideal world, I'd be able to like remove myself as a reviewer in the surfliner default workflow and find that objects that were once in this list are not, and then go back and re-add myself and find that they're there again. So that's, this is a pretty powerful tool all around, and I'm sort of disappointed that we didn't get it quite to demo state here for you, but there you go. That's the reality of doing this work. I think at this point, I want to throw it over the fence to Thor to talk about some AAAF and easy ID stuff that happened. Thor, I'm not sure if you want me to browse somewhere to show.
Sure. Yeah, why don't you just go to, I'm not sure if it's accessible outside through the firewall yet, but let's try it. Let's try lib,
Let's try it. What am I looking for?
lib-cantaloupe. So lib, L-I-B. I should probably just type that in. Lib, I'm sorry,
Lib.
yes. I don't know why.
Code for lib, code for
lib-cantaloupe-nonprod.ucsd.edu.
Lib cantaloupe
-nonprod
nonprod.ucsd.edu.
ucsd.edu. Yeah, there you go.
The right campus. Oh, that's.
Huh.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
I accidentally made this a DuckDuckGo search. We got some farm workers.
And there it is. Now do append a /-admin at the end. And then admin, and the password is secret.
Sorry?
Secret, just the word secret, lowercase.
How nice. Oh,
So
look,
this
there's
is
my Cantaloupe server.
Yeah, there it is, and it's
I
running in
haven't seen this,
Katie's.
so that's exciting.
Yeah. So that's about really all we can show at this point. You could get some JSON back. That would be really exciting, but it's up and running and it's functional. We need to iron out details about how we're going to get data in and out of it. But that's all. Getting to this point means that it's something we could in fact use in a Katie's environment without too much trouble. So that's kind of fun. Anyway, and then also the Easy ID stuff is another step towards sort of being production, because we are now, UCSB got to this, I think, in the last sprint, but UCSD now has our Comet server is now minting ARCs and DOIs on both the production and non-prod production shoulders that are specific to Comet. So that's super cool too. So that means we have a place to go to that makes real unique IDs, just like the ones in dams, but that they're discernible as different from the ones in dams. So both of those are cool things.
That's fantastic. And those are both things that we really did do all the things that we planned to here. It wasn't in scope for this sprint for us to actually get this Cantaloupe serving out real images, because we haven't really decided how we're going to do that. But we do have Comet serving out manifests, and we have the image infrastructure. So it's really now just a matter of getting the content in the right place and getting the integrations figured out. So that's a pretty big step.
Cool. And this is all based on the UCLA image containers and stuff like that they built.
Oh yeah, we use their chart. Is that right?
It's based on their container, and then I couldn't get their chart had some stuff in it that didn't work, so we built our own. But it's using their container and stuff. So
cool. That's exciting.
Yep.
Awesome. Let's see. Okay, so that's sort of the recap of what we did get done this sprint. The main didn't finishes, excuse me, the main didn't finishes for this sprint, and now this mini work cycle are the workflow parts that I just sort of highlighted us not showing. So again, it was sort of our hope to get through to the point of being able to move an object through a workflow, showing you comment only actions. So it's possible to have actions in a workflow that don't move the object through, but just allow you to add some notes about the object's process, and then we also were hoping to show these notifications working. I'm not sure what we'll wrap up today with all of that, but I think that we're honestly a lot closer to having all that working than it might look like from, from what we've been able to show here. And then the other piece that we had hoped to wrap up as carryover from last sprint was the file download. So we will recall that we do deposit files and have a view for them and their metadata and processes, but these download links do that. And we're still churning on that as of today. That one I'm less optimistic about closing out today, but I guess we'll see. So those are our didn't finishes. And Gabriella, I guess I usually say what's next and what our next sprint theme will be, because we are off cycle for the next couple of weeks. We haven't done a sprint planning, so I don't know what our sprint theme will be. I suspect that whatever we I guess I do have a broad sense of what our goals are for the next work cycle, which involve, I think, sort of the two big items that we really want to see getting done are not just the individual object workflow that we've just sort of glossed over, but also moving objects through that workflow in large batches. I think for both campuses, we see it as our normal process to do work in batches, at least during initial ingest to public serve, to public access processes. So we're really hoping to make a ton of progress on that in the fall work cycle. And then the other really big must-have, I think, for us is to have collections working. Last sprint we demoed the sort of object nesting behavior. The add a component behavior that we showed last sprint. And what we want to have happening is to also have the collection work done, and then that would start, that would look like the full object structure showing up here, and which would mean that we'd be in really good shape to be depositing content for real, at least on the UCSB side. I think that's our hope for the next sprint, or sorry, for the next work cycle. Okay, that's it for me. Gabriella, what do you have?
I have a question for you and
Yeah.
Thor. For you, when it comes to the workflows, not necessarily the notifications and or the roles, but when someone's pushing things through the workflow, are those events going to be logged? And if so, are they going to be retained? I don't think we discussed that.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm trying to think of where it might be mainly through this notifications process that the event logs are really visible, but there is quite a lot of infrastructure, not just for letting individuals know that they have work ready, but also just for being able to see what steps an object has been through. Yeah, that's a good question, because I think that it is indeed very very important to be able to see that. And there's quite a lot of code support for that, but I'm without being able to move an object through, I'm having a hard time thinking of where in the UI all of that's visible. But maybe we want to talk about that, where we want that to be too. Because the answer is sort of yes, like it's very meticulously logged what processes a thing has been through. So where that's useful to us, I think is an interesting question.
Yeah, I didn't know that was folded in already into Hyrax. I don't recall seeing it anywhere, but doesn't mean it doesn't already exist.
Yeah, I'm sort of equivocating here because I think that, again, there's a lot of back-end infrastructure that supports the kinds of use cases you're hinting at. But I'm having a hard time thinking of UI facing behavior that utilizes it. So that's where my hedging or waffling is coming from.
And you should, because I'm kind of thinking this is a discussion, something that we probably should have.
Did
with.
you have something for Thor, Gabriella?
Yeah, I did. For Thor was about the shoulder, for Easy ID. I know for production, the DAMS test, we use the BBBD shoulder. So I assume you guys set up the Easy ID minting so that it's not using those shoulders.
It is not using those shoulders. There's I believe it's is it CP and CS, but they're not, they look nothing like the shoulders we're currently using.
CP for C production.
Comet production and Comet staging. I
cool.
think that's what we used, but I don't remember if that, I don't remember the conversation out about where we settled. But it was,
Yep, that's right, Thor.
Like that. Cool, awesome. So.
That's it for me. I don't know if anyone else has questions. None. So with that, just going to state that and remind our stakeholders that these two back-to-back sprints, sprint 4 and 5, were short ad hoc sort of makeup sprints for that time we took off to support Sill's work. This wraps up sprint 5. We will have the next 3 weeks off before we start the next work cycle, which starts August 18th. I don't know if Chrissy and or Jessica want to talk about the end of work cycle meeting for our stakeholders. Maybe you both can pop in because we haven't seen your faces.
You've seen my face.
There's Jessica. So tell the folks what's up.
Chrissy.
Jessica. So as Gabriella mentioned, we are going to be having our second end of work cycle update for stakeholders. The last one of these we held after the fall 2020 sprint. And then, as mentioned, which seems like a really long time ago, I think it was actually held in December. But because of the adjustments that were made to the work cycle we're wrapping up, where we paused and then rescheduled now, it's a little bit later than we had originally planned on. But what we'll be reporting back on is all of the work that the team has accomplished, both in work cycle and off work cycle, since we last got this kind of update in late 2020. So there's a lot to share, and hopefully we'll have good attendance.
All right. Well, I think this is a good demo to share out. I'll follow up with notes, and Tom, I'll check in with you before I do record and share out the written version of this, because maybe, as you mentioned to the people viewing, that you might have some tickets to close out and some work wrapped up before I write this up. But
yeah, and I think we have a
work.
few tickets to review together as well, to decide whether they're closed or whether there's still gaps.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.